Hey, I'm John Cannell, and today on Preppy Kitchen, we are making the most indulgent, delicious German chocolate cookies. So let's get started. First off, you wanna grab 4 ounces of Baker's German's sweet chocolate. That's where the name comes from. This is not a German cake that we love in America. It is an American cake that uses chocolate developed by Samuel German for the Baker's Chocolate Company. We're gonna give this a nice chop. This will go into the cookies. This chocolate's dark, but there is a lot of sugar in it, so it has a lovely sweetness to it. My chocolate's chopped up. We're gonna set this aside and grab a big bowl to get the dry ingredients together. You should also have your oven preheated to 350 so it is nice and hot. These do not need any chill time. Into a bowl, I'm adding 1 2/3 cups or 200 grams of all-purpose flour. If you see a sifter here, it's because the cocoa powder I have is really lumpy and I do not want lumps in my cookies. Perfect. A scale is the best way to get lovely results in baking. If you don't have one, always make sure to fluff your flour up in the canister or bag and then sprinkle it into your measuring cup and level it off. If you scoop, you're adding way too much flour. Whoa, look at this rocky nonsense. I wanna add 1/2 cup or 50 grams of cocoa powder right now. You could use whichever one you'd like. I tend to use Dutch process for baked goods because it gives you a darker, fudgier cookie or cake. To puff things up, 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda. If you're not super familiar with German chocolate as a flavor, just imagine this. If you like chocolate and you like either coconut or Samoa cookies, my favorite Girl Scout cookie, you will love this recipe. It has the chocolate, the caramel, the coconut, pecans, and it all comes together in this gooey, delicious package. It's one of my favorite flavor combos. And for contrast, we're gonna add 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Scale is done. We're gonna give this a nice sift and you'll see there are no lumps remaining. Push those through. Cocoa powder has no sugar, but it's very high in fat, and those fats just clump together. Grab a whisk. Mix this up so it's nice and combined. We really want to distribute the cocoa powder, the salt, the baking soda, everything. And by the way, if you like my videos, hit that subscribe button. There's 2 new recipes every single week. All mixed up, we're gonna set this aside and move on to the wet ingredients. Into the bowl of my stand mixer, fitted with the paddle attachment, or a big bowl if you're using a hand mixer, I'm gonna add 3/4 of a cup or 170 grams of room temperature unsalted butter. And room temperature butter will indent when you press on it really easily, and it's in flex. That's what you want. If your butter is too hard, it just won't mix up to that right consistency. And if it's too soft, it's the same deal. We're using 2 kinds of sugar here. Light brown sugar because it has a lovely caramel taste, and then granulated sugar. The reason we're not just using brown sugar is it has more moisture in there and it'll make your cookies spread too much, even though it's delicious. So pack it in there. 1/2 cup or 110 grams of light brown sugar, and 1/2 cup or 100 grams of granulated sugar. Pop your paddle attachment on, and now we're gonna mix this until it's light and fluffy. This is one of my favorite cakes. You can click up here for my German chocolate cake video, but the cookie version is really fast, very portable, shareable, and just so delicious. Bring your mixer up to medium speed, and we're gonna mix it for about 3 minutes until it is light and fluffy, scraping the bowl down as needed. Halfway through, scrape the bowl down. This is looking pretty nice and fluffy. Take a look at that texture. Very light. It's like a beautiful cloud of sugar and butter. 1 more minute of mixing. Once it's nice and fluffy, it's time to add 2 teaspoons of vanilla. And 1 egg in. This is gonna be the glue that holds our cookies together. Okay, now you definitely want to scrape the bowl down because you have an eggy mess on top and compacted butter and sugar on the bottom. No, not in my cookie. All right. Mixing this on low for about 30 seconds so it's nice and combined, and then we're gonna gradually add our flour mixture in while mixing on low, the lowest setting. Gonna get this started. Now mix on low. Just add it in gradually. This is the step where your cookie can, cocoa butter. This is the step where your cookie can go from perfect to being denser than it should be, because you don't want to overmix your flour once any wet ingredients are added. Definitely scraping this down a last time. And you can even use your spatula to get this mostly mixed if you want to have ultimate control of your cookie. Once you see the mixture starting to change color and your flour is kind of becoming streaky and less prominent, it's time to add our chocolate chips in, as well as that chopped German chocolate. Chopped German's chocolate. So for this cookie, I want half a cup of chocolate chips. These are semi-sweet. Add that in, as well as your 4 ounces of German's chocolate that you've chopped up. If you don't have this chocolate or you can't find it, go ahead and just use 1 cup of semi-sweet chocolate chips. It'll be fine. Now mix this on low until just combined. Perfect, and by the way, this smells so incredibly delicious. One addition I didn't mention earlier, with any chocolate recipe, you could always use like a half to a full teaspoon of espresso powder. That could have gone in with the butter, it could have gone in with the dry ingredients. It'll just amplify the chocolatiness of the recipe. You're not gonna taste coffee, but it's totally optional. This is all nicely mixed up. It's time to scoop it up and bake these. Onto a lined, rimmed baking sheet, we're gonna scoop out 1.5 tablespoon-sized portions of dough and place them about 2 inches apart. If you want, you could make all the cookies right now, or you could freeze these balls of cookie dough and make the rest later. Once your cookies are all assembled, they'll last for about 2 days at room temperature. Just cover them up. But you could always freeze these balls of dough, pop them into a Ziploc bag, and then bake them from frozen if you wanted to kind of have this pre-made. Our cookies are ready to go into the oven, 350 for 9 minutes. Once they come out, we're gonna give them a quick tap to flatten them out. But in the meantime, we'll make that delicious topping. My cookies baked in the time it took me to get all my ingredients together. I gave them a tap on the counter. They're nice and flat and cooling down. For the filling, you're gonna want a 1/4 cup of toasted pecans. These get a nice fine chop. Toasting nuts brings out the flavor, and if you're not doing it, you are missing out. Just pop them onto a baking sheet, bake at 350, and check them every 2 minutes and give them a mix. Once they're fragrant, they're done. And the recipe actually calls for a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup of pecans, and because I love pecans so much, I'm using a full 1/2 cup. I can and will eat this topping by the spoonful. It is one of my all-time most favorite things ever. And you can make German chocolate cake cupcakes or German chocolate cake cookies, or go for the German chocolate cake, which is what I like to make Brian for his birthday. It's one of his favorites. Nicely chopped. Set this aside and let's get the rest together. Into a medium pan, I'm gonna add 1/2 cup or 100 grams of granulated sugar, 1 solitary egg yolk, no whites, please. Half a cup or 120 mils of evaporated milk. We're gonna give this a nice whisk right now to combine everything up. Really break that yolk up. Time to add a 1/4 cup of cubed butter. We're just cubing it so it melts faster, as well as 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt, a generous pinch. Or you could just use salted butter, that also works. Time to take this onto medium heat and make sure you have a spatula at hand. You're gonna stir this very frequently until the butter's all melted and it comes to a low boil. It'll thicken slightly at this time. So this cake recipe was actually developed by a very, very talented woman in Texas. It's technically a Texan cake, not a German cake. and this is an adaptation of those cake flavors into like the best cookie possible. So my butter just melted and already it's coming to a low boil. Every stove top is different. This one cooks so quickly. If you're using an electric one, it might take a little bit longer. Just keep an eye on it. As soon as your mixture comes to a low boil, you're gonna cook for an additional minute until it coats the back of a wooden spoon, and I'll show you what that looks like. The mixture coated the back of a wooden spoon, so I took it off heat, and now we're gonna add our coconut, pecans, and vanilla in. You want 1 cup of sweetened shredded coconut. This is my favorite stuff in the world. I love it so much. Along with those toasted pecans, and half a teaspoon of vanilla. Stir together. The smell is so wild. There's a problem though. This is very, very loose and extremely hot. So we were gonna let this cool down. Oh my gosh, if this wasn't boiling hot, I would eat the whole thing and start over. Chances are your pot is screaming hot as well. So to let things cool down faster, let's transfer this to a bowl. And if you want them to cool down very fast, I would transfer it to like a pie tin or a plate and then pop that into the fridge. More surface area means it'll cool down quicker. You're still gonna wanna stir this occasionally so it cools evenly. So I'm gonna spread this up the side, set it aside, and once everything is cool, we'll be back to assemble these delicious cookies. My coconut topping is cool and so are the cookies, so scoop out about a tablespoon, plop it on top, and we're gonna get these all coated with the coconut mixture. You might wanna push down a little bit just so it's a bit less domed. Because once the frosting is set up, it is set up. Don't worry if the frosting is like not sticking to the cookies very much. It'll weld itself on as some moisture goes into the cookie. I've melted a cup of chocolate chips and transferred them to a piping bag. You could just spoon the chocolate on top, but the piping bag gives you a cleaner look. Snip the tip off, and now we're gonna rake it all over the cookies. Just like that. I have my cookies on a wire rack over some parchment paper so that the mess is really easy to clean up. Allow the chocolate to set up or enjoy immediately, and just like that, they are ready to enjoy. So many notes of deliciousness. The chocolate, the coconut, the pecans all come together for a symphony of you deserve a sweet treat. I hope you get a chance to make this delicious recipe, and if you like this video, hit that subscribe button and check out my cookie playlist.